Thanks, Tim, and good morning. I'm here to offer a few quick thoughts on how we can get government to put more of its data online in useful formats. This is a problem I've been thinking about since the spring of 2008, when my colleagues and I wrote a paper called Government Data and the Invisible Hand. At the time, the three major presidential candidates were each promising to restore trust in our government and increase transparency by putting more and better government information online. Around that same time, a small but growing community of open government advocates and open data geeks was recognizing the value that raw government data could have in the hands of individual citizens. The most prominent effort at the time was a project called GovTrack, run by Josh Tauber, who single-handedly collected information about bills, votes, and members of Congress from across the web, creating a single website that elegantly combined the data. But more importantly, Josh provided his data set online for anyone else to use. This allows other websites, more than 27 at the last count, to rely on Josh's data, offering their own analysis of congressional activity. By making his data set openly available, Josh lowered the bar for others to innovate. Many of these other sites might not exist without Josh's efforts. In December of 2007, the open government community, led by Tim O'Reilly and Carl Malamud, coalesced around 8 baseline principles that define open government data. These principles describe how government should publish information in a way that is most efficient, flexible, and useful to the public. Most people agree that government itself should provide the raw data so others can innovate. But it's still hard to say what incentives will work the best to get government officials to publish more data. There's a growing disparity in the adoption of innovative technologies between .com and .gov websites. The best sites in .com take advantage of the latest technologies, advanced search and custom feeds, platforms for collaborative filtering and crowdsourced content, sophisticated mapping and visualization tools, and integrated social and interactive features, among many others. Sites that don't keep up fail to survive. This kind of competition doesn't happen in .gov, and the relative stasis of most government websites can be both frustrating and jarring. We could suggest that government invest more resources to keep up with the pace of online innovation, but there are many reasons to believe that this isn't the right strategy. Federal webmasters are generally able and hardworking people, but they have their virtual hands tied. The compliance minefield that comes with building and maintaining a federal government website, along with the realities of budgeting cycles and government contracts, constrains their ability to iterate as fast as private developers. Some new technologies may even be out of bounds, prohibited by outdated government regulations, or considered too risky to try. Even when the government does build a great website, and they have, there will be many other alternate ways in which citizens will want to interact with that information. Maybe some want to see it not as a table, but as a graph, or not as a list, but on a map, or on their mobile phone in addition to on their desktop. Or maybe some don't want an interface at all and want instead to run some simple statistical analysis for a research paper. Given its limited resources, it wouldn't make sense for government to try to provide all of these options, and there's no way it could. This problem goes beyond any simple technology, policy, or bureaucratic fix. So in our article, we proposed a counterintuitive idea. In order for the government to increase transparency, it should reduce its own role in providing information directly to citizens on user-facing websites. Instead, it should focus its resources on publishing raw government data. We suggested that government websites themselves should be built on top of a publicly available data infrastructure, what Tim O'Reilly has called the platform of government. This policy would incentivize the government to keep its data infrastructure up to date and in good working order, since its own websites would be powered off the same underlying information. The key advantage to our approach is to allow the public to continuously experiment in parallel, to reuse and remix government data in a wide variety of settings, in any way it sees fit, using the latest technological tools. It simply requires that .gov websites be built on top of a shared level playing field for both private and government innovators, and doesn't preclude the government from building new websites itself. This strategy wouldn't have worked even a decade ago. New powerful open source tools, especially web frameworks, and scalable web hosting services that can be purchased pennies at a time, have made large-scale web development significantly easier, faster, cheaper, and more accessible to more people than ever before. Civic innovation, and indeed all innovation, is about trial and error. But as Carl Malamud just pointed out to us, government doesn't tolerate failure very well, if it even notices failure at all. And it's often extremely difficult for government to be agile enough to right the ship. As a tax-paying citizen, I want the government to enable others to innovate, rather than having it spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in a good part of a year on a single website that might provide the right questions, but to the right answers, but to the wrong questions. Government should focus first on things that only it can do with a high degree of success. For government data, this means at least three things. First, publish raw data sets in accordance to the 8 principles of open government data that our community developed under the leadership of Tim O'Reilly and Carl Malamud. Second, provide rich contextual metadata about each data set so the public can easily understand what the information means and how to accurately reuse it. And third, apply cryptographic digital signatures to the data to provide integrity and authentication in downstream applications. These are all low-risk ideas. They are a simple and highly efficient way of spending taxpayer dollars. At the federal level, the Obama administration has done an incredible amount of work moving the ball forward. We, of course, have the White House Open Government Directive, which champions not only data transparency, but also public participation and collaboration, and data.gov, which makes published data sets more easily discoverable. But there's still a long way to go, not just at the federal executive branch, but also for our legislative and judicial branches and our state and local governments. Our Invisible Hand article focused primarily on front-end innovation, the creative ways that citizens can build applications and interfaces on top of shared government data. But these front-end innovations can only be as good for society as the underlying platform allows. The long-term success of the open government movement will also depend heavily on innovations at the platform level, the creation of tools to help government overcome the barriers that currently limit the platform's growth and development. Government needs better technologies to manage and version its own data, to fix errors in a systematic way, and to gather and maintain its own metadata. It needs applications to help non-technical staff members create content with machine parsable layers that integrate well with existing workflows. It needs cheaper systems to bring paper records online and automated mechanisms to redact sensitive information from public records. It needs better tools to authenticate data quickly and in a granular fashion. And it needs more avenues to further engage outside developers, to enable useful feedback loops, and in the end, lower the cost of front-end innovation. When raw data is an afterthought, openness and transparency suffer. Only by building the best platforms possible will government harness the creative intelligence of Americans, maximize the innovation of open markets, and leverage the power of the internet to bring all kinds of government information closer to its citizens. Thank you.